TBEST transit system and socioeconomic data downloads. So we'll talk about how that works, the 2021 Florida transit system data, the Gatorville training transit system. So that will be our title for our transit system we'll be working with today, and Florida transit system configuration and validation. Okay, so number one is that if you are anyone that uses TBEST, by default, whenever you go to start, you just start up TBEST, you can go to the downloads and you can get access to all of the Florida transit systems, at least probably 95% of them. Some of the smaller systems might not be available, but most of them are here. And so that you can download this and start using it immediately. And so what I will also mention is that we have not only the individual transit agencies, which are made up of their GTFS, and also the Florida 2021 socioeconomic data. We also have a statewide transit system, meaning that we have all of the Florida routes in one transit system. So if you're doing anything that would be relative to a statewide context rather than individual transit systems, then you can download this and you can work with it inside of TBEST. Now, it is very large in terms of size, and I think, in terms of model time and some of the other processes, you will have larger runtimes, but you are able to open it and view it, report on it, and interrogate it for all of the transit routes and service inside of Florida. So the transit system base scenarios were generated from published GTFS files, either from FTIS, which is the Florida Transit Information System, and that's hosted down in, I think it's FIU hosts that. We also looked up transit feeds from transitfeeds.com or direct from the agency. So all of these were generated for the spring 2021. So whenever you do download these transit systems and look at the base scenario, it will be generally be from spring 2021 timeframe, but there may be others. And if there is any differences, then you can read it in the system notes inside of this dialog that says when the origin route was generated. Okay. So in terms of the 2021 TBEST transit systems, they include a single network scenario with transit routes generated from the agency spring 2021 GTFS. They have been assigned a TBEST route type and technology. They have average fares implemented, and this would be a base fare and transfer fare that was from the agency website, and that should actually be the cash fare from the agency website. So what we did was, when we were developing this data, we went to every agency's website, looked at their cash fare, and that's what we implemented inside of TBEST as a fare policy. And we'll talk about how to refine that later, but as a starting point for everyone, that's what we did. We also implemented the operating cost per service mile, and we went to the NTD data to retrieve that, and that's where we implemented that and sourced that data. So that also is implemented in each one of these transit systems. In addition, we went out and looked for publicly available special generator and amenity information, and we came up with transfer stations, hospitals, airports, and shopping centers should all be coded in these networks as well. So what this is a starting point for the agencies where we've updated the data fully to where we could get it to. But what we're going to be talking about this morning is how to add to that data to get it to the validated state. So it's not validated yet. We have to add additional data in order to get these transit systems, or our Gatorville system in the case of the training, so that it's validated and has some additional data that would be local to the agency. So that's going to be a lot of this morning. So our Gatorville system that we're going to be using and downloading is, again, from June 2021, the GTFS. It has crosstown and radial routes. We did implement an average fare of $1.50, and the cost per revenue mile is set at $6.81. It does contain the Florida 2021 SE data, which is the 2019 ACS 5-year estimates, the 2020 LEHD employment. Now, what actually is different about the Florida employment data is that it came from the FDOT Systems Planning Office and has been scrubbed so that it doesn't contain the headquarters problems, and it's a more reflective of even kind of post-pandemic conditions. So just bear that in mind that this is the most up-to-date data that we have for Florida. And so whenever you do download your data sets, we're going to do this in training, but everyone has this data. So in terms of Florida properties. So just be aware that this is the data that comes from the Systems Planning Office and is for the statewide data. So we also have the 2020 Florida Department of Revenue parcel data. So again, Florida has a statewide parcel data set that is managed at the Department of Revenue. And we can use that data for the entire state. That's how we're able to do this, really, is because Florida does have that parcel data available for every county in the state, and we're able to use that inside of TBEST. Now, for the training only, and this is something that kind of diverges from what you would download just natively from TBEST. So whenever we download our Gatorville system, it's been preloaded with some elements that are specifically for the training. So it's been preloaded with the APC stop level ridership and mobility areas that we want to use for the training, and some pre-made query statements. So there's some elements of it that are different in terms of what you would normally download if you're downloading just a regular transit system. So so basically, as I mentioned, this is going to be our focus for this morning, is this configuration and validation steps for Florida transit systems to get them up to the final validated state. So at the high level, we have setting the transit system default operation and policy settings, syncing the SE data with the TAZ data, the TAZ base year, import a GTFS, configure stop level APC import for GTFS network, updating stop special generators and amenities. We'll also update route level seat capacity, operating costs, and other operational attributes. Actually, some of this we will do some of this, but others is just more or less the overall steps for validation. So whenever you go back and you're doing this for real, you can always come back and kind of reference these slides, because we are going to post them. And you can say, well, okay, here are the steps that I need to complete. Some of them are optional, some of them are required, but you can repeat them. So, and we have exercises to do that as well. So, and step 5 would be add SE growth rates, zonal growth rates from the MPO, and then add route level ridership for the validation. So that's our validation step, where we're inputting the actual observed ridership, and then we run a process inside of TBEST that will create the validation. So those are the steps that we'll be going through this morning, and through different exercises and demonstrations. Now, I will mention here that we have other downloads that are available. So we mentioned the transit system downloads, but we do have the source socioeconomic data that has been configured for Florida really over the past 4 years, that it's available for download. So the latest and greatest is the Florida 2021, which is this download that was released 7/20/29 of this year. And it contains the 2019 ACS, the 2020 Florida data, employment data, the parcel data, and a background roads layer. So you would only need to download this in certain situations. Like, you don't need to download this to use TBEST unless you're starting from scratch on a new transit system, or you need to revalidate a validation that you executed for a transit system, and you need to kind of go through the process of revalidating it. Then you would then reference maybe the latest and greatest SE data. Let's say that you validated a transit system 2 years ago, and you want to revalidate it using the latest and greatest SE data. Then you would download this for 2021 and then reference it in your validation process. So yeah, so you don't have to download it as is. For our training today, we're not necessarily going to download it because it's already embedded in the Florida transit systems. Okay. All right, so we're going to get, if we have questions, I'll answer them. And I don't think so, right?
Nope.
Okay. So here's our first exercise that we're going to complete. And then after we're done with this, we're going to go to a break. So what you should have is this in the slides. So what I sent you. So in the two PDFs, the day one exercises, you should have this exercise in it. So what I will do is perform these steps and kind of talk about them, and you can do the same on your local, both listening to me, watching, and also referencing the PDFs that I sent with the. So what we want to do is initiate TBEST. So most of you have probably done this already, but I'm going to start from the very beginning here. And I'm going to go to my start menu in Windows, and I don't see it in my initial list. So I can just type in TBEST here, and it brings up the TBEST app, and I'll just hit enter, and it will open. Okay, so step 2 in the instructions is to go to File, Downloads, Transit Systems, or select the download button on the TBEST Explorer. So really you only have so many options at this point. Once you open, you really just have your Explorer window here. And on the toolbar, you have this drop down where you can go to transit systems. So if you do this, you should see the Florida TBEST transit system downloads. Now, for some of the folks that we work with Service Edge Solutions, you might have different downloads here. And to go back to the defaults, I will show you what to do. So if you go to File, Download Settings, and click this Restore Default Settings, then it will restore the Florida defaults, and you'll be able to go to your downloads and go to transit systems, and you'll be able to see all the Florida downloads. Okay, so that was, sorry, that was off script, but I wanted to make sure that Rachel, you have this downloads available to you. Okay, so you do have the full list of agencies that you can see here. You can see their system notes where there's the Florida 2021 SE data network generated from the 2017-2018 Hernando County Transit GTFS. So here's an example of where we didn't have data that was more recent for Hernando County Transit. So we had to go back to where their most recent published GTFS was from and use that as the base network. So it's a really handy reference here to say, where's my starting point for each one of these that I might download. So let's go to the TBEST Training Gatorville download. So this is specifically built for the training, and just use the checkbox and hit download. Okay, so when it's complete, it will notify you and say okay. And what you'll notice is that in the TBEST Explorer window, under Transit Systems, you'll now have Gatorville, and its status is unvalidated. Now, if I leave this open, I can go to our optional step 6, and I can do a couple things. So the optional is to go to File, Download Socioeconomic Support Data, and download the 2021 support data. You definitely can do that. I'm going to stay right here for now and just download another transit system. So if I go up to, I'll uncheck this. Well, actually, I think if I do Baytown Trolley, I can hit download here, and it will download Baytown Trolley. So this is up in the Panhandle, and yes, I can download any transit system in Florida. It doesn't matter, all of it's there available to you if you need to use it. And whatever your interest is and your application is for, then you can download it. So we do have the MCAT system. So Susan, here's your MCAT system that you can download as well.
Yep, I've downloaded my system and the adjacent system, Sarasota County, already.
Okay, great. All right, so you can see that you're not limited to a single transit system in your list. You can have as many as you need and use those independently to perform your evaluations in your models. Okay, so on our next section, before I do that, I'm going to do one thing just to clean up my TBEST. Well, I downloaded the Baytown trolley and the MCAT system. I'm just going to remove those. So I'm going to right click on MCAT and delete it. I'm going to do the same for Baytown trolley. So in the end, we should just have our Gatorville system under the transit systems folder.